The biting wind howled through the darkened streets as I trudged along, my old coat pulled tightly around my shoulders. My hands trembled, not from the cold, but from the aching realization of what had just happened. My own son, the boy I had raised with love and sacrifice, had looked me in the eye and told me to leave. "You're a burden now, Dad," he had said, his voice sharp, devoid of warmth. "I can't take care of you. You should have planned better." I had lost my job only weeks ago. After 30 years of loyal service, my company had downsized, and just like that, I was discarded, an old man deemed unfit for the modern workforce. When I told my son, I had hoped for understanding. Instead, he had given me an ultimatum. Without an income, I was of no use to him. He had no idea about the secret I carried. For years, I had lived frugally, saving every extra dollar, investing wisely, and building a quiet fortune. But I never spoke of it. I wanted to see the true nature of people around me. And tonight, I had seen the truth in my son's eyes, cold, selfish, and indifferent to the man who had sacrificed everything for him. With nowhere to go, I wandered the streets, finally settling on a park bench. The city lights flickered above me, and I let out a deep sigh. Was this what life had come to? Cast out by my own blood, left to fend for myself in the very world I had once worked so hard to build a place in. The night passed slowly. My body ached from the chill, but my heart ached more. As dawn broke, the city came alive with the sound of honking cars and hurried footsteps. I watched as people passed by, too consumed by their own lives to notice the old man on the bench. Then, a soft voice broke through the morning air. "Sir, are you okay?" I turned to see a young man, barely in his 20s, his face marked with concern. He was dressed simply, his clothes worn but clean. He carried a small bag, and his eyes, unlike my son's, were kind. "I'm fine," I lied. The young man hesitated before sitting beside me. He pulled out a sandwich from his bag and offered it to me. "You look like you could use this." I stared at the sandwich, then at him. He had so little, yet he was willing to share. My hands shook as I took it. "Thank you," I whispered. "Name's Jake," he said with a grin. "I don't have much, but I know what it's like to be down on your luck." We talked as we ate, and he told me his story. He had grown up in the foster system, bouncing from home to home, never knowing real family. He worked 2 jobs just to keep a roof over his head, but despite his hardships, he had a heart full of kindness. I listened, deeply moved. Here was a young man who had every reason to be bitter, yet he still chose compassion. And then I thought of my own son, who had been given everything, yet had chosen cruelty. For days, Jake and I became unlikely friends. He found me a place at a local shelter, and despite his own struggles, he never stopped checking in on me. Each morning, he brought me a coffee and a smile, and slowly, I began to see life differently. One evening, as we sat on the same park bench where we had first met, I made my decision. "You've been kind to me, Jake," I said. "More than my own family. And I think it's time I repay that kindness." Jake laughed. "You don't owe me anything, sir." I reached into my worn coat pocket and pulled out a small, leather-bound notebook. Inside were the details of my investments, my savings, my properties. I placed it in his hands. "You see, Jake. I'm not as broke as you think." He frowned, confused, flipping through the pages. His eyes widened as realization set in. "Wait, is this real? Every penny. And it's yours." His head snapped up. "What? No, I can't take this." "You can," I insisted. "And you will. You've given me something more valuable than money. You showed me that kindness still exists. That not all sons turn their backs on their fathers. You are the son I wish I had." Tears filled his eyes. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll use it wisely," I said with a smile. Say you'll live the life you deserve. That night, I walked away, leaving behind a fortune, but gaining something far greater. Because wealth isn't measured by the money in our pockets, but by the kindness in our hearts. And as for my real son, he would one day learn of my secret. But by then, he would also learn that the greatest inheritance a man can leave behind, is the lesson of what truly matters.